everybody. Captain Rick Wright, NNOA, the National Naval Officers Association. And this is NNOA, our weekly broadcast as we broadcast from upstate New York. And of course, I serve as the historian and on the board of directors of the National Naval Officers Association. This particular broadcast is designed to present news, views, and perspectives of all of our great, incredible members of the United States Navy, United States Marine Corps, United States Coast Guard, the Public Health Service, and all of our oceanographic administrative types also, and everybody in our family. Well, today is the 7th of November. What a year, 2020. What can I say? We're in the middle of a presidential election, and it looks like President Trump might be going home, because Vice President Biden here is getting some votes beyond incredibility, and especially in the state of Pennsylvania, his home state. Well, also, this is NNOA, and our great, incredible president, Admiral Sinclair Harris, has said, okay, this year is going to be the year of the captains and the colonels of the United States Navy, United States Marine Corps, Semper Fi, and the always ready United States Coast Guard. So since this is the year of the captains and the colonels, let's get going with this, the second episode of This is NNOA, by bringing aboard a superstar in the National Naval Officers Association. Man, I tell you, in fact, he's a brother, but for me, he's a brother from another mother. If I had a biological brother, this would be the person. And ladies and gentlemen, let's go down to Washington, D.C., or in the suburbs where all the incredible leadership of the United States lives, and find Captain Jerome Davis, United States Navy, the greatest supply corps officer ever in the history of the United States Navy. That's my analysis now. And it's on time and it's on point. Of the National Naval Officers Association. And Captain Jerome Davis, hey, guess what, folk? He graduated from that school with the great marching band. Yeah, that school down in Louisiana, Grambling. Boy, they have produced some incredible graduates. So, folk, let this poor old NNOA board member, historian, and host of This is NNOA present to the airways on this wonderful day, Captain Jerome Davis, United States Navy Retired Supply Corps, and the Secretary of the D.C. chapter of NNOA. Captain Davis, welcome aboard, guy.
Welcome. Thank you, Captain Wright. I want to extend greetings and congratulations to you and Ruben for your podcast here. You know, what a wonderful idea. It's good to have you back on the air. As you know, you and I have done many interviews before on air. So it's always great to see you back in action, brother. All right.
Oh, it's good. In fact, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I, for close to 20 years on air broadcasting, and of course, I was on iHeartMedia. And hey, it's not over, but I did a weekly show called Old School Sunday with Dr. Rick Wright as we broadcast live from Syracuse, New York. And normally during our community hour or either during the historical attitudinal hour, Captain Jerome Davis was one of our very special guests to give us the news and views, perspectives from his particular arena and the Navy. Now, Captain Davis, let me shut up and get into you. Look, you come out of, hey, you drank a little bit of that Mississippi River water, right?
You got it.
They got
Not
you going,
just a lot of it.
A lot of it, huh? Give us a real quick timeline of the historical perspectives of Captain Jerome Davis and how a beautiful young brother like you from Louisiana got going in the United States Navy.
Well, you know, Captain Wright, I was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. I was, you know, I guess the proud son of Rose and Carl Davis. And both are New Orleans citizens, and unfortunately they're no longer with us. But we were raised properly. You know, we were raised in a poor setting. You know, we have to acknowledge that it clearly was not a middle class environment, but it was an environment that had love in it. All
Hey,
right.
I love these kind of backgrounds.
And
Hey, I love it, man. Nothing to work with, no money, no nothing, but look
no,
what
nothing,
happened,
man.
man. But
And
we
then,
had love and faith, huh?
that's
Hey,
right.
what high school did you finish, Captain Davis?
Well, I tell folks, I'm what you would call a traditional inner city, probably a black person, particularly in the South. Almost all the schools I went to were named after black folks. I went to Carter G. Woodson Junior High School. I graduated from Booker T. Washington Senior High School. And then, of course, obviously, I went to Grambling State University. All of this was in the 60s and the 70s, right when we were in the middle of the civil rights movement. And as the civil rights movement began to fade and we got into what we would call a diversity affirmative action phase of America.
Okay, Captain Davis, you come out of that great high school. How did Grambling State University come on your radar scope as a school to attend?
Well, it's amazing because Grambling was not my initial choice. What happened was I was supposed to be attending Southern University in New Orleans. And
the competition.
Yeah, the competition. And what happened was I was supposed to be on a baseball scholarship. I was a halfway decent baseball player coming out of high school. And the program got defunded right as I was getting ready to register for the school. So then I was stuck because I had no school and I had no financial aid. So what I had to do was, thank God, the University of New Orleans had plenty of financial aid money. So I went there for a semester. And I knew I didn't want to be at the University of New Orleans. It was never a school that I wanted, but I had to get my education going. And so while I was there, I said, I know I'm not going to be able to stay at this school. I don't want to stay here. So I went over to a community placement office that had applications for various colleges and whatnot. And so when I went in there, the only application they had was for Grambling. And I said, well, I like Grambling, I said, hey, I hadn't thought about it, but I said, hey, I like Grambling, so let me apply to Grambling. I applied to Grambling, got accepted, got a little financial aid, not much, got a little, went up, and then the rest is history.
HBCUs.
Right,
Looking after all of us from those poor impoverished families, man, of the South, because I'm an HBCU grad too, Elizabeth City State University, North Carolina Central, and Virginia State University are my three schools for bachelor's and master's and advanced certificates and on the wall. Now, Captain Jerome Davis. Now, this is the National Naval Officers Association, and to everybody just tuning in, again, I would like to repeat that this is NNOA, our weekly broadcast of news, views, and perspectives of great people in the United States Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Public Health Service, and other great organizations that are affiliated with us. Now, Captain Jerome Davis, you are a captain in the Navy. You're coming out of Grambling. Where was the interconnectivity with regards to joining the Navy? How did it happen?
Well, Captain, right, that's a beautiful segue there, because when I was at Grambling, I actually had no interest in joining the Navy. And in my junior year, my best friend from college had taken an interview with a Navy officer recruiter. And this was in our junior year. And for 2 years, he encouraged me to join the Navy with him. He kept saying, hey, Jerome, we need to go in on this buddy program inside the Navy. We become officers in the Navy and whatnot. And for 2 years, I kind of blew him off, like, hey, man, I don't really want to do that. I'm not interested. And what's crazy about it, I actually had a Navy family. My family is kind of a Navy family. My closest family member, God rest his soul, was a Navy chief. And I just had no real interest in joining the Navy, or for that matter, really the American military. And so anyway, and this friend of mine who eventually convinced me to join the Navy, his name is Dave Geiger. And Dave, on a side note, when we joined the Navy, Dave eventually left the Navy and became a supervisor inside the Navy Criminal Investigative Service. So but back to my story. So when we graduated, I actually had a job offer for an insurance company in Dallas, Texas. But the company did not have a relocation plan for new graduates.
Oh, yes, right. Keep going. No.
And so, because my family situation was if not borderline broke, we would call it broke. All right. And so, so the company really wanted me, and And I graduated, I want to say like around the end of May, early June. And the company gave me all the way until October to be able to get to Dallas, Texas. Well, the problem is I had no money, you know, and I had no means of getting money from anybody else. So after trying to do it for about a month, trying to raise money, trying to get a job, summer job or whatnot like that, I finally gave in and I called my buddy Dave up and I said, hey man, let's go join the Navy. All right. And that's how I got in the Navy. and Captain Wright, what's crazy about that story was when I went down to the recruiter. Now Dave lived in Dallas, Texas. He lived in Dallas, Texas. I lived in New Orleans.
Okay.
And so I called Dave up and I said, all right, let's go join the Navy. So I go over to the Navy recruiter. And I say to the Navy recruiter, hey, you know, I want to join the Navy. I got this buddy of mine in Dallas, Texas. We're going to try to join together. And I don't know anything about the Navy. And so I said, hey, man, when can I go? Because my financial situation is
dire, huh?
Precarious. You got it. Precarious.
Help me.
I'm broke. All right. So, so the guy says, hey, man, I got plenty of places for you to go to. I said, well, where would I be going? He said, hey, man, you could pick your place where you could do your boot camp at. And I go, well, where are they? He said, well, you could go to Meridian, Mississippi. You can go to Orlando, Florida. You can go to San Diego, California, or you could go to Chicago, Illinois. I said, well, you know, let me call my buddy first before I sign any paperwork. Let me call my buddy first and find out where we're going to go. So anyway, when I called my buddy, Dave said, hey, wait a minute, Jerome, that guy trying to send you to enlisted boot camp.
Yes.
I said, what? He
That's
said, yeah.
the question I was going to bring up right now. The great members of CRUPCOM, the Naval Recruiting Command, were they push you to the enlisted side or were they pushing you to the officer side? They were a great graduate of Grambling State University.
Oh yeah, the guy was pushing me towards the enlisted side. Now I had already told him that I wanted to be an officer and that I was a college graduate, but he was pushing me to the officer side. So once I touched base with my buddy Dave and he had given me the real deal, then I was able to go back and negotiate with the recruiter in the right fashion. So when I went back to meet with the guy the next day, I said, hey, man, I'm going to tell you how this works. All right. The only way I'm signing any paperwork is I'm going to have to be an officer on day one. And he went, well, that means I got to take you to the officer recruiter. I said, well, that's what you got to do. If you want me to join the Navy, that's what you have to do.
Yes, keep going, Captain.
So, you know, Captain Wright, when he takes me over to the officer recruiter, the first thing the officer recruiter does is he's happy to see me. He said, hey, man, I'm so happy to see you. And so I give him my little background. I said, hey, man, I was a business major in college and whatnot like that. And so, you know, I'd like to possibly do whatever the Navy do business-wise. So what the guy did, he said, hey, man, wait a minute before we do anything. So he takes me into another room with a TV and a VCR.
Yes.
He says, hey, man, I want you to look at this video.
Okay.
So I go in the room and he puts on a video with jets flying off aircraft carriers and whatnot like that. And he says, hey, man, when the video was done, he comes in and he says, hey, man, you ready to sign up to be a pilot?
Oh, God, I'm telling you, the Navy Recruiting Command, thank God that we got you thinking we got you in the officer side of bringing you into the Navy. Now, did they lay the OQT on you, the officer qualification test on you?
Oh, yeah. But you know, Captain Wright, what I did is when the guy hit me with the aircraft pilot, you know,
yes.
approach,
Okay.
I had to say to the guy, I said, hey, man, I said, you know, I don't know much about the Navy, but I do have some basic common sense. And I said, I was a business major, and I got to believe as big as the Navy is, somebody in the Navy is doing business.
Yes.
It's impossible for the Navy to operate without somebody in the Navy doing business.
Okay.
Then the recruiter said to me, he says, oh, then I'd had to make you a supply officer. I said, well, I guess you're going to have to make me a supply officer because that's the only way I'm joining the Navy.
Outstanding. And that's your training and all.
That's
okay.
Right.
So so we got you. You go through the physical exam, the officer qualification test is given, your great baccalaureate degree from Grambling State University is on the wall and on the table. And it is time to go Hayes, Gray, and underway to OCS. Hey, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, this is NNOA, our weekly broadcast from upstate New York. And I'm your host, Captain Rick Wright, historian for the National Naval Officers Association. And of course, our producer, executive producer and director is Reuben Wright III, and Reuben's over there running all the controls and stuff right now. This is the year of the captains and the colonels in the United States Navy, United States Marine Corps, and the United States Coast Guard. And today we are spotlighting Captain Jerome Davis, Secretary of the District of Columbia chapter of the National Naval Officers Association. Now, in our historical timeline, he has taken all of the Navy entrance exams, all the paperwork is done, and now he is leaving Louisiana and headed to Newport, Rhode Island, OCS?
Newport, Rhode Island is where historically OCS was at, and particularly in the 70s and whatnot. So I get up to, now this time period is 1979.
Okay, 79, and you an African-American brother there.
African-American, and we didn't have a lot of blacks up there when I went through.
Okay, I want to make that point known. Okay, Captain, take it away, man.
So I go to OCS. I go up to OCS, and inside my company and my class of my company, I was the only African-American. All right, and the thing is so we had about, say, 40, 50, 60 people in my company, and I was the only African-American. And we had a class ahead of us in my company, and they had 2 African-Americans, all right? And the class, I think, ahead of them had no African-Americans, all right? So the thing is, there wasn't a whole lot of us to talk to and probably get encouragement from. But the thing is, but the few of us that was there, we tried to support each other. We all kind of bonded and supported each other. Even though we weren't in the same class, we did, bond and support each other as best as possible and whatnot.
It sounds like the seeds of the Golden 13, our first African-American naval officers, the Golden 13.
You got it.
Yes, indeed. Those seeds were still floating, thank God, throughout the Navy. And of course, you all are working together and going through OCS. Hey, now, we go through the OCS training. You did outstanding there. Hey, did you make the honor graduate?
Well, what happened was, I passed. Thank God I passed. All right. And
that's the key thing. You're still a naval officer.
As a naval officer, the key thing is you got to pass. And, and I had halfway decent grade point average and whatnot like that. But there was tricks at OCS.
Oh, God.
Because OCS, we actually had people that were being rolled back and some people being expelled. All right. And when they got expelled, they normally expelled them into the enlisted ranks.
Yes, the attrition is tough. Now, OCS is tough because we try to make a naval officer. How many were we talking? 4 months?
Yes, 4 months. Back when I went through it was 4 months.
4-month program.
4-month program. And essentially you averaged an exam roughly about every 2 days. So in 4 months, I think we had something like 36 exams in 4 months.
Yes.
So you covered all areas. You covered seamanship, navigation, leadership management, Navy policy, just engineering. You covered all of these subject matters in roughly about a 4-month period. And we had 3 exams that were notorious for having people either roll back, which means go back to the next class, or get expelled. And those 3 courses were seamanship, celestial navigation, and I want to say operations management or something like that. All right, CIC, maneuvering board. Maneuvering board.
Yes.
Maneuvering board was the big one that rolled people out. Okay, it was the big one, and that maneuvering board test, everybody felt the pressure of that maneuvering board test because you had to maneuvering board. There was no fuzziness. You either had to get it right or you got it wrong. One or the other.
It's mathematics, man. Navigation, trigonometry, calculus.
And you know what?
In the right position.
Well, and you know what was crazy about the maneuvering board was that, and the seamanship course, and even celestial navigation, as a supply officer, you knew in all likelihood, once you got through OCS, you would never see those items again. You'd never see them again because you would be off going down to supply corps school and whatnot like that. But the key was you had to get through them.
Yes.
And one of the things that I did, because I knew maneuvering board was dangerous, and even the students in the class ahead of you would tell you, maneuvering board is extremely dangerous. You got to pass it. All right.
I did that, Captain.
And so what they used to do is they used to have extra study courses where you could go in the evening after all class was over, OCS was a very tight regiment program. And what they did is they gave you breaks like maybe once a day. And the break might be for an hour. And when you had that break, you could then go get extra study, as they called it, all right? And what I did when we had that break, instead of going back to my room and relaxing and whatnot like that, I went to maneuvering board. When I went to seamanship, I went to the seamanship extra study, and particularly when we did celestial navigation, because celestial navigation was the last course to get you out of OCS.
Roger that.
And you had to pass celestial navigation in order to get out. And so for those three, I went back and did extra study. And thank God, I passed the test the first time, and then I was on my way. On my way down to Athens, Georgia, to Supply Corps School.
Thank God for those great professors at Grambling State University. All of our great professors, especially at HBCUs, they threw the book at us because they knew what we will be facing with regards to making in the mainstream of life. Now, Captain Jerome Davis, you are now headed down Georgia. Hold it, Captain. When you went to Newport, was it wintertime or summertime?
When I went to Newport, it was the end of the spring and beginning of summer. All right.
Okay, because you come up.
And I got out and I graduated. I think it was November 2nd out of Newport.
Oh.
Yeah, and so we got some of that coal that Admiral Harris talked about off of Narragansett Bay.
Yeah.
Because what they did at OCS, that they used to mess with you to see if they could get you to, I guess, maybe fall out. You had to do an inspection of all uniforms.
Yes.
All right. So what they did in Newport, when it got cold, they had us all go out and do a summer white uniform. So we would be outside and it was like 30 degrees in a summer white uniform.
I did that. Well, we're broadcasting from upstate New York. And ladies and gentlemen, this is NNOA, our weekly broadcasts of news, views, perspectives of the National Naval Officers Association. And today we have an incredible guest, Captain Jerome Davis, who is the secretary of the DC chapter of NNOA, great Supply Corps officer. And Captain Davis, are you on the bus? Are you walking? Are you taking a train or a plane to Athens, Georgia to do your basic officer course as a Supply Corps officer? By the way, how long did that course last for you?
Yeah, well, Supply Corps school is 6 months.
6 months.
6 months.
Okay.
And the Supply Corps school, you can look at Supply Corps school as equivalent to giving somebody a master's degree in 6 months.
6 months.
That's how intense it is, the study regimen. So you're literally looking at a master's degree in about 6 months.
To our great audience checking us out now. By the way, we got NNOA chapters all over the world. And Captain Rick right here and Captain Jerome Davis want to say a big salute and hi to all of our chapters, all the way out in Japan, man, Hawaii, all in the central region of America, the West Coast, the East Coast, Europe, the Mediterranean. Hey, I'm enjoying this. This is a labor of love for me. Now, Captain Jerome Davis. Now, hey, folk, the Navy, we have a lot of branches. We got ships, we got planes, we got submarines, we got all kind of bases all over the world. But you know what? The basic element to keep all of this stuff working, we got to supply. We got to supply our squadrons, our ships, and submarines with things that they need for readiness to keep the Navy afloat. And you know who does that? Supply Corps officers. Hey, I never forget. And folks, here's a little example. I was on a Great Lakes cruise running the public affairs operation back in, a number of ships, but I never forget the summer of 1992, the USS Samuel Eliot Morrison. We were getting ready for payday, Captain Jerome Davis, and the supply officer on board, good buddy of mine, man, came to me and said, hey, Commander Wright, I want you to go with me down to the bank. And we pulled in, I think we pulled into St. Ignace, Michigan. Since Michigan is big with the political thing, we were tied up at the United States Coast Guard base there, and right across is Mackinac Island. We went to a bank, I think somewhere St. Ignace, Michigan, man, and Captain Davis, we had to grab some money, man. I thought we were gonna go down and get a couple of $100 or something, man. We walked in and walked out, I think, with about $30,000, man. I said, wow. Supply Corps, let me just shut up and let you talk, man, but I'm just so impressed with Supply Corps officers. Now, Captain Davis, in this segment right now, give us a quick, let's talk about when you finished Supply Corps and also your very first ship and you report on board in your first duty station. Give us a little kaleidoscope of what happened.
Well, when I finished Supply Corps school in 1980, I actually got a little delayed because I ended up having knee surgery.
Yes.
I got hurt.
Right. Yeah.
I got hurt at OCS, and so I ended up with knee surgery. So that delayed me from going out to the ship. But I got assigned to the USS Orion, which is a submarine tender, which is no longer with us. It's a decommissioned now and unfortunately scrapped. But a great ship, ship that served over 40 years in the United States Navy. So I get assigned to the USS Orion, AS-18, out of La Maddalena, Italy, all right?
Okay.
Which was considered to be an isolated duty site, all right? But the Navy decided that they would change their designation, at least the Supply Corps did. Normally when you went to Orion, you only went for 15 months. But the Supply Corps decided they didn't want to rotate their officers that frequently, so they assigned me to the Orion for 2 years. So I was the first, I believe, Supply Corps officer that they sent to the Orion for a 2-year tour, all right? In this basically remote environment, but it was, it was good duty. And I was blessed because I got a chance to go and serve on the ship with some super supply officers, because a tender is basically a repair ship for either destroyers or submarines or whatever. Yeah. And so the two biggest operations are normally repair and supply.
And you got to get the stuff to them that they
got to get the stuff to them and whatnot like that. So I was blessed to have gone out there and worked with some tremendous supply officers. And those guys gave me some real foundational stuff to help me survive the Supply Corps. My first job when I got to the ship, which is the normal job that guys that leave Supply Corps probably normally get, is dispersing. So I go up to this ship. Now here I am, a guy from the projects. I never had a bank account in my life, Rick and Captain Wright, until I went to OCS. It was the first time I ever had a bank account in my life, a personal bank account. I get out to the Orion, and they make me the dispersing officer. So now I'm the dispersing officer with over $2 million in cash in safes that I'm responsible and accountable for.
Oh, join the Navy, see the world. It's not just a job, it's an adventure. And
it's an adventure. Now, I had never seen more than $500 cash in my whole life prior to that.
Oh, boy. And you out in Italy, you in the Mediterranean.
I'm in the Mediterranean, and now I'm also dealing not with US dollars, but I'm dealing with foreign currency.
Yes, that's the
So now I'm dealing with Italian lira, Spanish peseta, and all this other type of stuff,
Only in the United States Navy.
Only in the Navy,
Captain Davis, we're going to be able to talk to you forever. Ladies and gentlemen, this is NNOA, our weekly broadcast from upstate New York. Executive Director and Producers Reuben Wright III, and every week we are going to feature some incredible members of NNOA, the Navy, that is the United States Navy, United States Marine Corps, United States Coast Guard, and our Public Health Service, and also the Oceanographic, also augmentation of the National Naval Officers Association. Today we have Captain Jerome Davis on board. As Admiral Sinclair Harris would say, this is the year of the captains and the colonels of the sea services. Now, Captain Davis, now you're on board the Orion. Give us a really quick kaleidoscope. Now you on the Orion, you've also had major commands too, and I want to really segment into the National Naval Officers Association D.C. chapter, because there's a person I want to spotlight this afternoon, and you're the perfect person to have on today. But hey, Captain Davis, after the Orion, kind of give us a quick timeline of some of those other great commands you've had.
Okay, well, once I completed my tour on Orion after 2 years, and I was blessed because one of the significant events of the Orion that surprised me was when I got to the Orion, they made me a CIC watch officer, which threw me for a loop, because I said, wait a minute, I'm a supply officer. I'm not supposed to be doing CIC.
Oh, you thought that celestial.
Yeah. So I thought when I left OCS, I was done with it. And I found out I wasn't done with it. But anyway, I had a very successful tour on the Orion. I ended up being a dispersing officer. And then I also eventually served as the ADP officer, which was automated data processing officer, which we had a huge operation over there. I had over 50 folks that worked for me in that operation. And then I was the assistant financial officer, which was a big job for a guy that was a Lieutenant JG. It was a big job. And normally a Lieutenant JG would not have that job. But
now, Captain Davis, for young people who are listening and checking out our broadcast on this wonderful day in November in the year 2020, how old were you when you had these kind of responsibilities, having like $2 million?
well,
How
I
old
think,
were you?
yeah, I want to say I was roughly around 23 years old, 23, 24 years old.
Okay, that's
And
the point I want to make.
right.
Young,
And that was,
responsible leadership in a
yeah.
very young age.
And
Okay,
you-
keep going,
and,
Captain.
and I would say this here, when you talk about the leadership thing, the back then, most of the people that ended up working for me, I was the first African-American they had ever worked for. All right. So you had to go through that kind of barrier thing where you got folks that historically have never worked or participated in an environment where the African-American was the leader. All right. So, but the thing is that, but thank God, you know, I grew up in the projects, and I had always had leadership positions as I was coming up through high school and stuff like that. So for me, it wasn't that big of an issue. I was able to get guys to understand who was in charge, and that I understood what it was, what the responsibility and accountability was for being in charge.
Yes.
And so,
Hey,
I had
Captain
a very,
Davis.
very successful tour, very, very successful.
Captain Davis, on board the Orion, were you the first African-American Naval Supply Corps officer in the history of that ship?
I think I was, and I may have been, and what's sad about it, I may have been the first African-American officer on the ship ever.
Okay, roger
Yeah.
that. I want to make that point today,
'Cause-
looking at really the
Right.
advancements that we've made in the Navy, because again, as I mentioned last week in our inaugural episode of This is NNOA, and I was talking to Admiral Sinclair Harris, we're talking about a service at one time that only wanted our ancestry and members of our family to serve as stewards and mess cooks on ships. And we had a lot of barriers to overcome, and look what happened here. And it's the year 20. Well, what an incredible year we got 2020 going on, haven't we? Oh, boy. And today, of course, again, is November the 7th, year 2020. This is NNOA. Your host, Captain Rick Wright. I'm the historian for the National Naval Officers Association. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's transit into the land of opportunity, Washington, D.C. And of course, right now we're in the middle of a presidential election. All the votes have been counted, and things look like we could have a brand new president of the United States. Washington, D.C. Captain Jerome Davis is the secretary of the D.C. chapter of the National Naval Officers Association. And Captain Davis, it is indeed an honor and a pleasure to have you on this program this day, because here is the name I want to put on the table. A lady that I was so much in love with, her mentoring and her mentoringship at the Naval Recruiting Command years ago was incredible. And especially to me when I got my commission in the United States Navy back in the early 1980s. I'm talking about Miss Esther, the late Miss Esther Boone, and the great contributions that she did. In the DC chapter alignment, you all have an incredible scholarship named after Miss Esther Boone. And of course, y'all have y'all's big gala every year, and you all have raised so much money, scholarships, especially for young African Americans to make it in life. And let me just shut up and let you talk about the accomplishments of the Esther Boone Scholarship and the dinner. And also, who's some of those great people? You had a lot of incredible powerhouse speakers over the year, Captain Davis, haven't you?
Yes. And first of all, I just want to backtrack for just 1 second back to the Orion,
please.
and then I'll go to Esther Boone. Quick thing on the Orion was the whole 2 years I was on the Orion, I was the only Black officer on the Orion. And we had over 40 officers assigned to that ship. There was never another Black officer that came on the ship the whole time I was there.
So you had to handle isolation.
Right. And then the other thing the ship had,
Nobody
it was one of the first ships to put women on board. We had 3 female officers. So that in itself was unique. All right. And but we had 1,000 men with 3 female officers and 1 Black officer. All right.
Hey, so, Captain Davis, also before we get back to our lovely lady, Miss Esther Boone of the DC chapter, you know what the more I hear this story about you finishing Supply Corps school at Athens now, the United States Navy, and now it sounds like the Dennis Nelson story. I mean, you get shipped out from Georgia over to the Mediterranean to Italy. I mean, out of the continental United States of America, all right? Now, everybody, a brother named Dennis, Lieutenant Commander Dennis Nelson was one of the first African-American naval officers. And of course, in 1944, the Navy finally, we commissioned 13 African-Americans as naval officers. And of course, one of the group was Lieutenant Commander Dennis Nelson. And after these wonderful brothers, man, got their commission, the Navy didn't know what to do with them. And Lieutenant Commander, that is Ensign Dennis Nelson at the time, was stationed at Great Lakes, Camp Robert Smalls, all right? And when he got his commission, Captain Davis, he bought a convertible, man. You know, brothers, here it comes, man. And he went down to the uniform shop and got every possible kind of uniform that a naval officer would have. And during World War II, the Navy had your service dress blues. You could have one with a cape on it. And that's the one he had. And he had this convertible, man. Here it is, Chicago, Illinois, Great Lakes in the wintertime. And here's a brand new brother Ensign, Ensign Dennis Nelson, one of the Golden 13. All right, so he's driving his convertible headed out to Great Lakes to the base. And he's coming up, the commanding officer's wife's car had broken down. And she was trying to get to the base. So here's this African-American brother, Ensign, in a convertible, brand new top back, got the cape, man. Looks like James Bond coming up, man. That is an African-American James Bond. And he stops and picks up the commanding officer's wife. And then he's driving into Great Lakes. Can you imagine this scene? This is 1944. This young, beautiful African-American brother naval officer with the commanding officer's wife, who happened to be white. And we got all around. That day, before the day was over, Ensign Dennis Nelson had orders out of Great Lakes. And the orders they gave him, they shipped him to Guam, or one of those islands out there in the Pacific.
Right.
He said the greatest thing ever happened. They, basically they were trying to get rid of us, man, make us disappear, right. It was like to me. So he goes out to Guam, he writes a letter back, said, thanks, y'all have sent me to paradise. So in your case, look, my God, you leave Athens and you go to the Mediterranean. Hey, that's great though, right? For, poor guy, from Louisiana, huh?
Right.
I love it. Captain Jerome Davis, all righty.
Well, on the Dennis Nelson story, remember when they sent him over to Guam, I believe it was during the war.
Yes.
He ended up working with cargo handling guys, which eventually became supply corps guys. Yeah. Basically, they became, yeah. So there's a connection to Dennis Nelson. I did want to mention for your audience.
Go ahead.
Before we get to Esther Boone, that Dennis Nelson, is critical to the integration of the Navy and his efforts at working with Admiral Zumwalt and folks like that. And he has a great book where he captures the history of the Navy integration, which is titled, I believe, the Integration of the Navy. That's was authored by Dennis Nelson. I would encourage all of your audience and our members to get that book, because he captures how the Navy integrated in that book. He did a fantastic job with that book.
Also, for historical purposes and content this afternoon, Captain Davis, both of us love naval history. We'll indicate that Lieutenant Commander Dennis Nelson's book, that book is, the basis is his master's thesis in history at Howard University.
There you go.
And that was his master's thesis that he was able to turn into a book. Since you mentioned the Golden 13, I want to bring this up this afternoon, everybody. Book by Mr. Daniel Goldberg, brand new book on the Golden 13. Just came out a couple months ago. It is incredible. And you see the beautiful picture of the brothers standing on the steps of that doggone barracks steps at Camp Robert Smalls in World War II. And by the way, they never got a graduation, man. This was it. They had the names not even mentioned. And this same picture appeared in Life magazine under the caption, Navy Commissioned First Negro Officers. And the book, Golden 13, right here. Okay, Captain.
And don't forget to mention that you also got a plug in the book by the author, for your great report to the author. So we can't, in the acknowledgments, he mentions the great Captain Roosevelt Wright. So we can't pass that up. All right.
Okay, Captain Davis. There, Captain Davis. Esther Boone, I'm bringing it up. And you are tell us about the DC chapter of the National Naval Officers Association first, because you all are based in Washington, D.C., and all of our basic command headquarters are all in D.C. for the United States Navy, United States Marine Corps, United States Coast Guard, the Pentagon is there. So basically we're saying headquarters of our sea services, the operational area is Washington. And I'm sure your chapter's got some of the biggest names of leadership in the United States Navy, United States Marine Corps, and the United States Coast Guard. And then, of course, that big gala banquet that you all have every year. Of course, this year, COVID-19, we are suffering an incredible, horrible, insidious disease that's taken a lot of our people right now as we look at the 7th of November, 2020. And this year you didn't have the banquet, but you've had, tell us about the essence of what y'all have done there, because the money that y'all have raised is close to $1 million for scholarships for young, especially African-American brothers and sisters trying to get an education, coming out of impoverished backgrounds with nothing but what? Brilliance, brain power, and that's the key. Tell us about the DC chapter and y'all's efforts there, Captain Davis.
Well, I've been blessed to have affiliated with the DC chapter, and in the DC chapter, once it was founded and organized, and they decided to go with a scholarship effort, they decided to name the effort after a significant person, which is Esther Boone. And Esther Boone was a African-American female that worked, I believe, inside the office of the Navy, CNO's office and whatnot. And she was instrumental in recruiting and encouraging the recruitment of African-American into the naval services as officers. That includes the Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, whatever. So what the folks that formed the DC chapter did, they wanted to recognize her outstanding work. And the best way to do that is to establish something like a scholarship program where she then gets to be honored long after she has departed. And Esther, unfortunately, is no longer with us, but we carry her legacy forward. So in the DC chapter, we take that, historically, we've taken that very serious. We want to make certain that we do more than just be Navy officers, that we have a responsibility to the community, and particularly to the African-American community. So we have this scholarship program that we use to do outreach and show to the wider public that we're more than just military officers. We also care about what's going on in society. And the scholarship effort is one of our signature programs that allow us to do that. We have, in the DC chapter, we have 2 programs that are significant for outreach that we do in a given year. Unfortunately, both of them had to be canceled because of the virus.
Yes, the pandemic, yes.
Yeah. But the 2 programs are our Veterans Day outreach at the Veterans Hospital here in Washington, D.C. Every year we go up to the Veterans Hospital, and what we do is we bring socks and knit gloves and caps and all kind of other things, scarves, to give out to the veterans that are at the DC VA hospital. The DC VA hospital also has a huge number of homeless vets that come in and out of that facility.
Roger
so
that.
We want to make certain that we provide some clothing. We're doing our little part. So roughly we provide about, I'd say on a given year, we probably provide over $1,000 worth of caps and knit gloves and stuff like that to these veterans. We also go around and visit the veterans in the hospital and thank them for their service to this nation. And what we always do is, what we historically do is we end up doing what's known as our famous bingo game, where we go into one of the wards. Historically, we go into the psychiatric ward and we play bingo with those guys for about 2 hours. And what we do is we play for scarves, but the most important thing is we play for money, which they like. So,
Yes.
So what we do is we solicit quarters from all our membership to give us quarters, and then we take the quarters and then we play for $1 a game.
Yeah.
And then as we go along, we raise it up. We might play for $5 a game and whatnot like that. And the guys absolutely love it. And we have an outstanding relationship with the staff there. And what the staff does is they go about and get a cake, and we normally cut a cake and drink some punch and juice and whatnot like that and celebrate Veterans Day. And then we give the guys all kind of hugs and whatnot like that and wish them well. So that's one of our outreach signature events. And then
And Veterans Day is coming up. This
And
is
Veterans Day is, and unfortunately, we can't get in the VA hospital
yes,
this year
with
because of the virus.
pandemic, yes. But
Yes.
I'm sure you all will come up with creative ways doing Veterans Week. By the way, to all of our listeners to our This Is NNOA broadcast, next week we will be spotlighting veterans and all. And I got to find our great veteran rep, Commander Ernie Taylor,
Great guy,
naval aviator. So I get him on next week as our guest, and I'm sure that we can make that happen with our great executive director and producer, Reuben Wright III. Now,
that's the boom. And yeah, so
yes,
now the scholarship effort.
Yes.
Yeah, so what we've done is over the years, you know, particularly since the 90s, we made an effort to improve our scholarship efforts. You know, at one time we used to give about maybe 5 scholarships for $10,000, something like that. Well, we realized that as naval officers, and we've all been blessed, particularly here in the DC area, and many of us have done pretty well and good in life, we decided to change our approach to doing the scholarships. Previously, in the early 90s, what we were doing, we were raising the bulk of the money from maybe a little fundraiser event and then getting a couple of corporate sponsors. Well, roughly, I want to say around the mid to late 90s, we decided to change that approach. We decided that we need to start raising money and scholarships from the individual members. We need the individual members to sponsor a scholarship. All right. Many of our members love that approach because what we did is we gave them an opportunity to do a scholarship. It had to be at least $1,000. And then they got to name the scholarship for whoever they wanted to name it for.
Roger.
And then they got to dictate the requirements for the scholarship. All right. Well, that drove our scholarship effort up significantly. And ever since we went with that approach, we have literally grown our scholarship effort every year. Till now, you know, I would say in the last 4, 5, 6 years, or last 10 years, we easily given about $50,000 a year. And it's normally now it's over $60,000, $70,000 every year, including this year where we had the virus and we were not able to do our scholarship banquet. Go back to leadership and being able to adjust with leadership. Key to leadership is that when you face a problem, you have to deal with it. All right. And we were able to do a workaround solution. We weren't able to have the banquet, but we still awarded the scholarships to the students. This year, during the virus, we were able to give away 36 scholarships, over $60,000.
Wow. Right? Salute you for that.
So we're keeping Esther Boone's legacy alive and rolling.
Yes. This is fantastic. Now, Captain Jerome Davis, our guest today on This Is NNOA, our weekly podcast to the world, bringing news, views, and perspectives of the great National Naval Officers Association. Hey, Captain Davis, we got some big shout out to Denise McCullough-Crary, Commander, United States Navy, our immediate past president. Just to make sure we mention her name.
Yeah. I love Commander Denise McCullough-Crary. That's my girl. I love her.
She's a talent.
We got to give her a shout out and whatnot. Yes. And we must note that she was the first female national president of NNOA.
Yes.
So we can't skip that significant fact. We're hoping that, since she became the trailblazer for that, down the road, we would hope that other females would look at trying to aspire and become the national president of the NNOA, because Denise did a wonderful job in the role, and she continues to do a wonderful job in support of NNOA after she stepped down from the role. So,
well, just want to mention
one of my heroes.
And there are a lot of heroes. In fact, also our great captains and colonels in the United States Navy, Marine Corps, and the U.S. Coast Guard. You all are coming. We're finding you. Captain Wright and our executive director, Reuben Wright, we're going to bring the whole show and weekly here on This Is NNOA. Captain Davis, you all have had a most impressive list of banquet speakers for the Esther Boone Gala every year. Y'all down in your those, black tie affair and all the nice looking Navy formal uniforms and all. Give us a list of some of the folk who have appeared, like Admiral Michelle Howard, who was the first 4-star African-American female, period, in the military. When she was who's some great names? You got a list that's impressive. Run them down for us this afternoon.
Yeah, not only Admiral Howard, but remember Admiral Howard is also a member of the DC chapter.
Yeah.
And he's a scholarship sponsor in the DC chapter. All right. So she's been doing a scholarship with us, I want to say since, I know at least since she's been was in '05.
Yeah.
So she's been an integral part of our DC chapter here. And I want to add that when she was the deputy CNO, she actually held a Black History Month event for the DC chapter where she was the guest speaker at the Pentagon in the Pentagon auditorium. You know.
Now, let's make a point here for a lot of people don't know about our acronyms. Deputy CNO, that's Deputy Chief of Naval Operations, second in power of the whole United States Navy, African-American female at the time. Admiral.
And I guess I'm saying it wrong because it's actually Vice CNO.
Vice CNO. Well, you know, hey.
Yeah.
As Dr. Murray McLeod Bethune said many years ago, our people will never be satisfied until they see Black faces in high places. And that's what's going on right now. Hey,
we also had, back to notable folks that we've had, we've had, obviously, Sinclair Harris.
Admiral Harris.
We've had Manson Brown, who was the first 3-star African-American in the United States Navy.
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard, excuse me, in the United States Coast Guard. We've had the CNO, Gary Ruffhead, as a guest speaker. We had the Secretary of the Navy, Buddy Penn, as a guest speaker. We've had Linda Washington, who was the highest ranking civil servant at the Department of Transportation as a career civil servant. She was the Secretary for Administration within the Department of Transportation. We've had Stephanie Easter, who was one of the senior SESs in the whole United States Navy, and I believe even in the whole federal government, as one of our guest speakers.
This has been impressive.
All right, I listened to the speakers for our banquet, and you can't forget when we bring these folks in.
Yes,
we're bringing them in with the students and their parents and family members. So normally our banquet runs anywhere from 200 to 300 plus people every year. So we putting these folks out in front of a significant crowd of people. It's just been a wonderful, wonderful thing that we've been blessed to be able to do and pull off on a yearly basis.
Well, the point I'm making also is Washington, D.C., and trying to give a visualization to our listening audience of members of NNOA, and not just members of NNOA. We're going to pick up listeners from all various walks of life. Our great executive director and producer, Reuben Wright III, big graduate of the Newhouse School of Public Education at Syracuse University. He's working on his master's degree. He's a genius at marketing. So we're going to really get this thing expanded more and more and more. Now, Captain Jerome Davis, before I let you go, the National Naval Officers Association is coming up 50 years old. 50 years in the year 2022, and we're going to be getting together at Annapolis, Maryland, the home of the United States Naval Academy and the birthplace of the National Naval Officers Association. And of course, also everybody want to know that Captain Jerome Davis is an incredible historian, African-American historian. And if you ever want to know anything about sea services history, just call up Captain Jerome Davis and he can give you stories beyond stories of the United States Navy. Hey, we think about Dory Miller this afternoon. Oh, the list is long. We think about the United States Marine Corps. We think about Lieutenant General Frank Peterson, first African-American Marine Corps aviator and general. And also, we can't forget the Moffett Pointers, those brothers, man, of World War II that laid the foundation of the Marine Corps. And I'm just calling some names out this afternoon. And of course, the United States Coast Guard, haven't forgotten you, Captain Bobby Wilkes, first African-American aviator, clear my throat here, in the United States Coast Guard, and also commanding officer of United States Coast Guard air stations like U.S. Coast Guard Air Station, Brooklyn, New York. And there's another brother who was a big mentor of mine, Captain Jerome Davis, and he was the Coast Guard rep for the National Naval Officers Association back in the 1980s. And his name was Lieutenant Commander Milt Moore, United States Coast Guard. And Milt was one of the most brilliant electronic technicians ever in the history of the United States Coast Guard. And at one time, the Elizabeth City Coast Guard Air Station is a big airfield. They have an air traffic control tower there. And Milt Moore was the only brother in the United States Coast Guard who had air traffic control certification. And as a young, poor little African-American kid growing up in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, and my mother, Reuben Wright III's his grandmother, Ms. Lily Mae Wright, man, she was a lover of the United States Coast Guard and Navy. I used to go up in the control tower, man, and see Milt Moore, man. It was like incredible to see an African-American role model in that role. And I'm talking the 1960s. So, Captain Davis, what are you looking forward to?
Can I say something before you leave?
Lay it on us. Lay it on us
Yeah,
this afternoon.
the thing is that because when we talk about the naval services, we forget where it all started for African Americans, all right? And we must go all the way back to the beginning of the country, because the first guy that lost his life to start this whole project, which we call the United States of America, was an African American merchant seaman by the name of Crispus Attucks. He took the first bullet for independence, liberty, and democracy in America, all right? And that merchant marine presence has been critical for this country. And African Americans have been a critical part of that of that merchant marine experience. And it started with Crispus Attucks, which led to the whole naval history for African Americans in the sea services in the United States. So we cannot, under no circumstance, forget that merchant mariner part of this deal. And don't forget, when we didn't have African Americans sailing as captains and whatnot in the naval services, they were actually doing that in the merchant marine.
Right.
So we get to World War II, when we had the 10 or so ships named after African Americans. One of them was captained by the great Hugh Malzak. You know, we can't forget that. African American was sailing as a captain on a U.S. Navy ship, which was a merchant ship, in World War II.
So like the Harriet Tubman.
That's right. We had all of these ships, the George Washington Carver, I believe, the Booker T. Washington. You know, the thing is that so we have a long legacy of sailing as officers, even before it became official in the United States Navy. You know, so our legacy with sea services and whatnot goes way back to the foundation of this country. So we cannot forget that. And I must point this out, which you bring up all the time. There is no such thing as an American Navy without African Americans. When you look at the Revolutionary War, the number of African Americans that sailed as sailors, most notably in the War of 1812, you know, as I think Commodore Perry pointed out, he wouldn't have made it without African Americans.
Erie, Pennsylvania.
He wouldn't have made it without the African American presence.
Yes.
And then you go into the American Civil War, where it was estimated to be roughly about 25 to 17% of the crews were African Americans. So the thing is, our legacy, particularly in the naval services, is significant. It has historically been beyond our population, our percentage in the population.
This is the population, yes.
So the thing is, so when we get to events like today, where we look at the Navy, where we're doing this Task Force 1, and we have this underrepresentation of African Americans, particularly at the senior levels inside the Navy and the Coast Guard and Marine Corps and whatnot, that in itself is a disgrace to this country. Because when you look at the presence of what we've done in supporting the naval services in this nation, that is totally unacceptable and it's unforgivable. And so we must fix that, because it's disrespect to the legacy of African Americans in supporting this nation with regards to its naval services. So that's just my editorial spill there, but I had to get it in.
But that's what our program is all about.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is NNOA, our weekly broadcast as we broadcast from upstate New York. Our executive director and producer is Reuben Wright III. And this week we have featured, as we look at as Admiral Sinclair Harris is putting on the table, the year of the captains and colonels. And kicking off this particular episode as we look at the brilliance of our captains and colonels has been a most incredible brother, working his heart, soul, and body and mine in a most positive direction in really the support of really our efforts with the National Naval Officers Association and the DC chapter of the National Naval Officers Association, Captain Jerome Davis, United States Navy retired, a member of the Supply Corps of the United States Navy. Captain Davis, I could talk to you forever, but I think our time on the wall is bringing us down. And of course, every week now, we will be on air with a weekly episode of what's happening with the National Naval Officers Association. And the title of our broadcast is This is NNOA, hosted by Captain Rick Wright, United States Navy retired, and the historian and on the board of directors of the National Naval Officers Association. Captain Jerome Davis, I love all those emails you keep sending out. Every time you're sending out a kaleidoscope and a timeline of historical significance here in America. So to all of our great NNOA membership throughout the entire world, Captain Rick Wright, bravo Zulu to you, Captain Jerome Davis.
Can I do a little closeout? First, I got to do public. I got to do a little public affairs. First, I want to mention our chapter president, Captain Retired Tony Abernathy, and our vice
your leadership. Lay it on us.
DC NNO chapter leadership, and our captain, retired Gary Poe, who's also a recently retired Supply Corps active duty captain. So that's our leadership. Also want to thank you and Ruben for, again, man, the great work that you guys are doing. The idea that you got this podcast going is something that I believe in, that we need to do. We must always, always recognize our great people, because it starts with us. Because if we don't recognize them, nobody else will. We have when I look at yourself and I look at Ruben, and I think about all the great work you've done over the many, many years, particularly with getting the word out about the great legacy and history of African Americans. You know, I can't thank you enough. As you noted, when you opened up, when you said that we're brothers, you know, I love you like a brother. I don't know if I could get closer than brother, but if I could, I would. So the thing is, I just want to thank you for all the great work you've done over the many, many years. There's many people on this that will look at this podcast and not know the significance of the work that you've done over the many, many years. The people that you've helped put out into the public media business and whatnot like that is just incredible. And like I say, we must make certain that we show our appreciation to those folks that have been in the trenches, trying to make a difference in this Navy and in this country. And you definitely are one of those folks. So God bless you, brother. Love you.
God bless you. Bravo Zulu to you, Captain Jerome Davis. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another edition of This is NNOA, hosted by yours truly, Captain Rick Wright, producer and executive director Ruben Wright III. We'll be back on the air next week, and next week we'll be celebrating veterans. And I'm going to contact him. He's probably checking it out. Hey, Commander Ernie Taylor, naval aviator, the veterans rep for the National Naval Association. He's going to be our guest next week.
And don't forget the most important part, DC chapter member.
Chapter member, yes, indeed. So, Jerome, let me go back and check out all of our news delivery services and see what's happening with our presidential elections, man. This is exciting. This is an exercise in civics. This is an exercise in probability and statistics, man. Those kind of courses. And this is a fantastic time in the history of America. God bless you, and God bless all the membership of the National Naval Officers Association and our great president, Admiral Sinclair Harris, United States Navy retired, the world's greatest surface warfare officer. And to all of our young people who are listening to the show and our young junior officers, from me and Captain Jerome Davis, stay strong, be safe, we love you, and put God first in your endeavors, and everything will be all right. We're signing off.
Happy Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day.
Okay, and happy Veterans Day to everybody.
God bless.
Bravo Zulu. We are out, and Hayes Gray, and we are underway.